Good evening.
Can I quickly ask a question?
Yes, so we've got a question from Leah here. Okay, yes.
When my husband gave me a present, a puzzle of my children's picture.
Oh, beautiful.
Which is gorgeous. And I made it on Shabbat. And now, obviously, I was thinking I'm going to break it, put it away. But now I'm thinking I want to glue it. So, I can maybe slide it over, but it's one that crumbles really quickly. So I think to glue it, I'll have to take it away from the mat and onto the canvas. So can I do that? Because so it doesn't become as a malacha.
A malacha when you did it on Shabbat.
Obviously, I didn't think of doing anything.
Keeping it that way.
Puzzle, let's do it. So is that a problem?
Now it's becoming kavua.
It's on the mat. Yeah. I will have to transfer it. But
the pieces will stay together, right?
Most of them.
Or
I can also take one by one and
take it apart.
Them. Yeah. It's
That's much better.
Very flimsy.
It's much more work for you, but it's better that way, because if you don't do that, if you keep it whole or almost whole and move it onto a canvas, that will be considered that you had built, you had permanent, right? And that's kotev. Some real malacha d'oraita.
At least half of it or
more? It's interesting because any section is the fact that it's a full puzzle. It doesn't matter. Right. Every section is its own picture. So I think take everything apart. Take everything apart. Yeah. Don't see a choice here. It's like, by the way, we have such situations where something becomes a malacha if you don't do a certain action afterwards, and it turns out that means it was done as a malacha before. For example, we said we can open all kinds of plastic containers, wrappings of all kinds of things because they're never going to be used over again. So on Shabbat, we're allowed to break them open, tear them open, and use the content. But then if someone uses that box for something during Shabbat or after Shabbat, even though they didn't have it to begin with the intention to use it, and then they're using it for something, then it turns out backwards, it turns out that they created a kli. So we see that's problematic, that even if you didn't have intention at the time, you do something and don't do something later on, that reflects backwards what you had done then. Yeah, it's a very interesting situation. So I would take it apart totally. You do one, so you don't need to. Doesn't have to be a brain teaser again to build it again. Even though it's maybe fun to just build it again, but however you feel. Okay, so the next chapter we said we'll do now is a short chapter of a few random. Random situations which have to do with Chilul Shabbos. Dafka, these situations came up in the course of our learning once in a while. I think you had asked these type of questions before, and now we'll get to the rules of these situations. I'll just remind, for example, a question that came up here in this group once before, inviting over non-religious, non-observant Jews for a Shabbat meal, for Yom Tov, if they come by car, if they go home by car, how do we deal with all that? So similar type situations we'll learn about now. It's a short chapter. So Hashem, we should be finished maximum 2 times this one. Okay, so one of the cases here is a case where, and I actually had a situation like this happen to someone. They called me right before Shabbos to speak to me about this exact situation, and it was complicated to figure out what to do. The question is, if you take a taxi somewhere, and you're going to get there before Shabbat, that's not a question. If you won't, that's bad, that's terrible. But you're going to get there before Shabbat. The problem is the taxi driver will then have to drive back to where he lives, and that's going to take him into Shabbat. You have to be, are you responsible for him being Mechal Shabbos because you had hired him to go far away for where you need, and now he has to go back on Shabbat. So the answer is, it can't be done. It can't be done as long as it's a Jewish driver. Or if it's a non-Jewish driver. Still.
Like those Get taxis.
Right, they're always around.
Always 5 seconds later because he's in this vicinity now. Instead of going home, he'll be going back to his town, but with other passengers.
Right, but as far as you're concerned, because of you, no matter what, if he's hired or not, he must Mechal Shabbos now. He wants to get, he doesn't live in the area where you hired him to go to.
We used to have a similar nightmare with my father-in-law.
Yeah.
They used to come and stay with us for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, Matthew Ovens. He couldn't walk to shul, and I couldn't push him. I wasn't strong enough. I couldn't go when Matthew left like first thing in the morning because he had to wake up slowly and prepare. He was already in his 90s.
You mean during Rosh Hashanah?
Yeah, and Yom Kippur.
And Yom Kippur, yeah.
And so we used to, on occasion, sometimes found non-Jewish people who lived in Renana, who we paid before to come to the house and pay him. But occasionally there was no one in Renana.
And take, you mean, and wheel him
like a carer type. And on occasion, we had to organize an Arab taxi to bring in a Filipino man from Tel Aviv on Rosh Hashanah.
Wow.
Because there was no
to
other
be the
way.
One to push him
there was no other way of getting him to shul, and it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
It was a nightmare.
Yeah.
The only good thing was
it's
once
so
the oven went off, and I think somehow someone managed to get the guy in to.
You needed him for
but it was a disaster because there were so many ifs and buts that went into it. I can't remember who we asked about it, but it was a very expensive nightmare.
I understand. Yeah, there's so much.
Had to come back to take the Filipino home to Tel Aviv.
Right, and to figure out where the Filipino lives for an Arab cab driver to find him and bring him. It's all strangers and all very complicated. But that's different because it's about non-Jewish. Non-Jewish, that's so totally different.
So occasionally we ordered and we had to specify, please don't replace this driver on the day. Don't give your job to your friend Shmuel Ahmed.
Very good.
You know, you have to be the one to come to the house. And the payment was also, the whole thing was it was like stepping through a minefield. It really was. I mean, we did it only because it was so important to his dad to hear the company, but it was giant.
You can find a neighbor nearby, maybe a Chiloni neighbor who wouldn't have gone to shul early. And
needed to eat. There were a few quite specific things that needed to happen. He was an elderly man, and I didn't want to entrust him like to a teenager or to a woman even because the wheelchair is heavy. He was an elderly man, and he didn't want to be.
No, so I meant a Chiloni neighbor who wouldn't go to shul early.
Right.
Anyway. Whatever.
We didn't think. We tried to think around so many corners to work out what is
the best way to do it.
Most appropriate way to do this.
Wow.
I don't know.
Okay. So that's a whole different issue, a different topic. That is going to come up later when we get to the chapter of Miral Akum and using a goy. That's a whole other complicated chapter. For now, we're talking about a Jew who, because of you, he is forced to be Michal Shabbos. True, he can stay somewhere nearby, but there's no chance whatsoever that he's going to rent a place where he took you. He's going to go home. So if it's a Jewish cab driver, you cannot allow this to happen. And even though you may say, what does it really matter? This guy, like Leah just said now, this guy is a cab driver. He's going to work anyhow during Shabbat. Unless he takes off Shabbat. But let's say we know he doesn't. Let's say we know it's one of his work days. Dafka, he needs Shabbat for extra parnasa. So he's anyway driving. So what does it matter? This one trip home. It could be that he's hired to go back. On his way back, he's hired by someone, and then it's not even just for your sake. He's earning parnasa and he's working on his way back as well. And even if not so out of 10, 20 rides on Shabbat, one of them was caused by you. What does it make a difference already? The answer is a Gemara in the Rambam. Sorry, the Rambam. The Rambam quoted in the Bir Halacha in Kuf Tzadik Tet 199. It's my 199 in the Bir Halacha quotes the Rambam that says the following. It's a very scary or strict saying of the Rambam. Even Yerovam ben Navat was one of the most wickedest Rasha kings of the Jewish people. He was the one that split the kingdomship of the Jewish people, the Jewish nation, after Shlomo Melech died. Two tribes went with Rechavam, which was the son of Shlomo, and 10 tribes went with Yerovam. He split it all the way till the end, till the destruction of the temple. It was a real disaster, real terrible, wicked thing to do. Besides the fact that he positioned 2 golden calves, Dan and Beersheba, to make the Jews pray to them instead of going to Beit HaMikdash. Terrible. Even Yerovam ben Navat, who worshipped idols, and he caused Am Yisrael to sin terribly. The worst type of individual can ever be, and he's denied of Olam Haba. He's one of the 3 or 4 men that are listed, who have the zchut to be listed as no Olam Haba for them. Even them, if they didn't do Eruv Tavshilin for preparing between Yom Tov and Shabbos, Hashem will punish them for that as well. Every single bad deed, doesn't matter how terrible the person is and how much bad this person does, one more tiny bad action is also punished for. So here, so definitely here, it doesn't matter if he drives 20 times during Shabbat, and it's his job, but if one more time he does it because of you, it's improper, it shouldn't be. The only thing is that we're lenient in cases where it's not a definite Chilul Shabbos. Now you can be lenient if you must take the cab driver. If, let's say, it takes normally an hour to get back from where he took you to the town where he lives, and he has that hour. But there may be traffic jam, there may be an accident on the way, on the road, or road construction on the road, things of that sort. That we don't mind so much because you gave him the amount of time that's necessary, and it's not a short thing that he may have done Mechal Shabbos. It's not lifnei v'doraita. The fact that he goes back because of you, it's not a doraita level because he could drive anyhow for anything he needs. So it's only misayeh derabanan. The fact that you caused him to go back on Shabbat, that's misayeh derabanan. It's only a rabbinic prohibition, and rabbinic prohibitions in suffix situations and unsure situations, we go lenient. So if it's a definite case where he has to be Mechal Shabbos because he doesn't have the appropriate minimum amount of time to get back, then don't hire him. To get an Anju, take you. And if it's a non-definite situation, then you can. Okay, I remember I had a similar situation. Someone had asked me, it was a case where, there were 2 cases similar. A case where a person really had to get to their destination. It was even driving their own car, but normal speed, they could never make it. No, impossible. But they had to go to the destination. One was the case of a Chassan Kala, who had gotten married Thursday evening. And then, this may be a lesson not to have weddings Thursday evenings. The Chassan and Kala were in their apartment Friday, and they were meant to get to some hotel for Shabbat, for the Shabbat Shabbat with both families. And sure enough, they fell asleep, they napped Friday noontime because of the wedding being very, very late Thursday evening. So they took a nap Friday noon, and they had an alarm clock and everything to wake them up. They wake up, they see less than the time that they can make it to the hotel. Now from where they are, it's a different town, different place in the country. They don't even that time. They don't even the minimum time to get to the hotel. Imagine that. Both families are in the hotel in Chassan Kala. So they started off to the drive. I won't tell you what speed they sped at. I think it wasn't worth it at all. It wasn't worth it at all. Just stay home. Somehow make your own Shabbos. It's terrible. It's very, very sad, but what can you do? Anyway, so they call me on the way, not they, the father of the Chassan, who lives in Ranana, told me on the way, telling me all this, describing to me all that's happening. So I said the best they can do is to get to wherever they get to by Shkia, or 2 minutes before Shkia to have Tosefet Shabbos. Park the car wherever that is, just on the side of the street. Leave the car, get out of the car. In the meantime, this father of the Khatan should hire an Arab cab driver to go towards them, to drive towards them. Today with Waze, you can tell exactly where they are and where they. So he goes towards them, and those 2 minutes before Shkia, they park their car, they switch over to the Arab cab driver's car, and now he has a non-Jew can do a malacha for a Jew if it's for mitzvah purpose, even during Ben Hashmashot, even during the time between Shkia and Tzeis. So they get another the 2 minutes of before Shkia and the 20 minutes, 22 minutes. 22 minutes they gain by being on this Arab cab driver car. And then they must get off at the moment of Tzeis, they must get off the car. Even that, they have to get off wherever it is and walk to the hotel. So that's what they did. Wow. It was from Yerushalayim to Netanya. That's what they had to get to.
Where did they walk from?
So in the end, they got to Netanya, but it was on the hotel was another part of Netanya. And we come from Yerushalayim, we come to the southern part of Netanya. So they got to the midway of Netanya, within Netanya, and they had to walk from there to the northern part of the hotel.
Could the cab, oh no, they didn't have their suitcases. Could the cab driver take the suitcases to the hotel for them, even if they can't?
No, because as of Tzeis, when it's real Shabbos, any malacha that a goy does for a Jew is not allowed. Any malacha that a goy does for a Jew, that's the whole chapter.
Even for his own benefit, obviously, he's getting paid for the trip.
Right, it's not considered for his own benefit. Otherwise, we'll do all that when we get to the chapter. That's a very, very important chapter.
It's the best
Yeah.
story that's ever happened to Matthew and I. We were also newly married.
Yes.
We were going to an opera for one of his, he sang in a choir. It's like an unspoken rule that each choir person sang for free at the other
nice. The group
of yeah. But for some reason, no one else was going apart from us and the cousin and the choir boy that we had in the car with us. It was the Friday before Christmas, and we turned over this hill, and it was a shopping centre, and it was just red lights. And we called the rabbi that married us.
And this was Friday afternoon?
Friday
close to Shabbat?
No, it wasn't, but it was all we could see was red lights, like until the horizon, and we were nowhere near. And we called our rabbi. We had in our mind, if you start a journey, you can finish it. And the rabbi says, you can drive until Shkia.
Yeah.
And we had to park in this like disgusting trailer park on the side of a motorway, and we had to walk. I think it was like over 13 miles. We didn't know where we were going. It was pouring with rain. There's no area.
Wow.
There's no area.
So nothing
we stood by the car a few minutes before Shabbos, and I said to Matthew, put on everything. Put on everything. I can't even tell you how we did it. And we basically got to the city that we were going to, and we didn't know where we were going. We couldn't carry the instructions with us. Anyway, basically walked for hours and hours and hours in the rain, and I had to knock on the door, and everyone's houses were dressed.
At least it strengthened your marital life.
Anyway,
that's
very,
for
very
sure.
short.
Yeah.
The rabbi that we got there eventually. I had to knock on people's doors. They were having like this and say, and I was dripping wet. And they said, "There's a bus stop there. Just get on that bus." I want to walk. It was sheets of rain.
Wow.
Anyway, we eventually got to the opera, and then we were staying in this hotel. And as we walked into the room, the person turned on the lights, and I was like,
after all that.
Anyway, the rabbi at the shul later became my stepfather's rabbi, and I said, "You probably don't remember me, but." Years and years ago, I do remember you. He said, and that's why you were blessed to live in Israel with your family. It was very, very nice ending to the story. But it was, we were walking along like 3 lanes of like juggernauts in the pouring rain, standing outside the deals. And we just walked and walked and walked. Because there was
just nothing else to do about it. Yeah, these are difficult situations.
It was a great moment in our
that's for sure.
Along the traveling, I'm going to ask a question.
Okay.
I know the ship traveling is different, but what if it's only like, I've seen now the Royal Caribbean is doing cruises from Haifa to Cyprus and Greece. And I saw the dates. I didn't check properly if it's Daf from Chag, but there are Rosh Hashanah dates. Sukkot Day, Simchas Torah.
Wow.
And I'm wondering, because it's only a couple of days, we're not talking about a week-long journey. We're talking about 2-3 nights.
2-3 nights in Dafka during the Chagim?
I think it's, this is what was advertised. I didn't actually check the dates, but
they don't dock for that time.
I don't think they'll dock
No,
for 24 hours if it's like literally
like
just
days.
a couple of islands. Right. So I'm wondering, are you luckily
that is a little bit more simple than this car issue, because as you said, you're not doing any melacha. When you're sitting on the ship, you're not doing any melacha. But the question is, are the majority of the passengers on the ship Jewish or not? If the majority are Jewish, so Haifa, it must be. It must be, so you can't board.
You can't board?
Because that means that someone's going to do a malacha for you. They need to steer the wheel. They need to.
You mean like the crew?
To the engine, the crew.
No,
now, if they're Jewish,
it's Royal Caribbean. It's not Israeli ship.
So they're not Jews.
American ship.
So they're not Jews. The crew.
I would assume.
But even
they will get some Israeli stuff, like waitresses and
okay, so let's say you're not dependent on them. Chilul Shabbos wise, but Chilul Shabbos wise, when they steer the wheel or they press on the engine and all that, the Chilul Shabbos issues that are involved in the cruise, that's done for majority Jewish people. So the halacha says that if you board the ship 3 days, more than 3 days before the holy day, Shabbos or Chag, 3 days earlier, then it could be on Shabbat, it's Tuesday, right? But it's Chag, it could be a middle of the week, right? So 3 days before the holy day, then it's permitted, as long as there's pikuach nefesh, if they don't drive the crew, meaning
like if they don't dock it.
Right, there's no way to dock it in the middle of the sea for Shabbat or for Chag.
There was no
right.
problem, I think, docking anywhere.
Right, it's shallow to everywhere. Right, so it sounds to me that it's not a possible
thing to do as a family.
Right.
You've never done it.
Yeah, right.
What are you going to do at the Chag? You can't swim. Can't do anything.
See stuff like you're on a ship. It's experience on its own. You don't need to do anything. They'll have like jamboree area for the kids, play area. Just being on the ship.
Yeah, the ship, seeing the sea, seeing the ocean.
It's only a couple of days. That's the thing. I thought, wow, if it's a few days or Shoshana, that'll be interesting. Maybe I'll get my husband's family who are not religious, and for them, like, we'll have a meal together. And one kitchen is kosher. So.
Yeah, but the fact that they're doing malacha for you, and it doesn't have to be done because it's not pikuach nefesh.
Wouldn't it
I don't see a way.
The rule of like, even though it's technically.
But it's just like Shabbat, like hotels.
But it's not though, because there's something even more experiential about that. That it almost takes. Like, you wouldn't really feel it was hard. Do you think?
I mean, it's going to be an experience.
Right.
It's more than Chag experience.
Right.
Even though when you go to a hotel, it's not really
a hotel experience.
Right.
There's something about the fact that you're like moving on Shabbat that just or Chag that just feels like
not Shabbos thing. It's not Shabbos
thing.
thing.
On a TV, like you're technically not doing anything,
right.
but it's like
it's not Shabbos thing. It's
a
do it to the Shabbos.
Don't you think? Like hotel, you wake up in a bed, you go to sleep in a bed, and you're still in the same place. Like a ship, you wake up and you're somewhere in a different country, somewhere else. And
right, but as long as you're not doing malacha, I understand your feeling. Let me ask you: have you ever gone on a Shabbos elevator?
Yeah.
I've gone. It's the same idea. It's taking up and down,
right.
moving. Some poskim prefer that we don't use Shabbos elevators, exactly because of your point right now. Exactly because of that. Feels exactly like a weekday. Exactly. Some poskim say that.
Yeah.
But these are things that we get used to, and they're really not prohibited. They're really permitted. Right. So we get used to them, and we don't feel that they're non-Shabbos that way. Right. So I would say that's the least of the problem here. But the greater problem is the fact that if it's majority non-Jews boarding the cruise, then
the cruise or working the ship?
No, boarding the cruise, because the passengers are the ones that the crew works for, is working for. So if the majority are non-Jewish, then they're working for the non-Jews, and you're there as like taking tramp, as we say in Hebrew, on on the ship there. But if it's majority Jews, then the entire crew is working for Jews. Very, very problematic. I was asked this question a while ago, a while back.
Idea of something fun to do within Israel.
Right.
Corona friendly.
Yeah, right. So, okay.
There are also nice hotels.
Yeah,
but they're fortune.
Yeah, right. That's true.
This is like $400 for a few nights, all inclusive.
The whole family?
No,
per person.
So it works out, I think, cheaper than the hotel. Plus, you get much more.
Yeah, much nicer experience. Yeah.
And you have a few different a few restaurants, and one kosher, but for them, a few restaurants. There's pool. There's entertainment for kids. There's theater. There's 24 hours going on.
Wow. How much of that would you be able to do? I think you'd find you were like telling
I'll be running after the kids.
I think you would find there was a lot of stuff. Like even in the hotels in Israel, when we've been, and there are children's clubs. Children's club open on Shabbat, and they have a PlayStation, and they have sticking activities, and they have all sorts of things that you
can't talk to kids do. Right.
So I think maybe you would find it more of a headache, to be honest with you. I think you would go
more
there
aggravated than happy.
They're going to have like, I don't know, just stuff that your kids just can't do anyway. And then they're going to be
by the way, there are religious cruises. And then it's really catered to the religious people. And then it's much, much better. And they have all the activities, kosher for Shabbos, the food is kosher, everything is fine.
I don't think they'll let me.
Why not?
Because I haven't heard it was like that religious. Like I've never heard that there's like, I understand that like it's like properly.
What's that?
For like the theme, not like
for religious.
Super religious?
No. Not necessarily Haredi,
No, but it's different environment. Right.
No, I don't think it's a Haredi element. No, not the Haredi element. As long as you're religious. No, it's for you. It's for your own good because the passengers want. I've heard of such a thing. Some rabbis take a whole kilot on these cruises. A whole kilot.
Trapped on a ship with people that you try to avoid. We can pay for that experience.
Don't say that out loud. Okay. By the way, hotels, you asked why is that? Hotels, we must refrain from benefiting from any Chilul Shabbos. They can't do any Chilul Shabbos for their guests in hotels. So again, if the hotel is mainly Goyish guests, and then they turn on lights and turn on ACs and everything else, so it's good. They do it for the majority guests who are non-Jewish, so fine, so you can benefit. But if it's mainly Jews, no matter if the crew are Jewish, which is even worse, or the crew is non-Jewish, but the staff is Jewish or non-Jewish, it doesn't matter because they're doing it for Jews. So they shouldn't turn on a light in the dining room during Shabbat.
The worst thing they do is they click you in when you come in for breakfast.
Wow.
And it's manual, not always.
No,
not always.
It could be electronic.
We had that just now of Pesach.
So that's okay if it's a goy, because he's not doing it for you. As far as you're concerned, let me in with that clicking. He's doing it for himself. But if it's a Jew doing it, you cannot go in that way because you're causing a Jew to do a malacha. Yeah. Or find a side door or something. I don't know. It's very complicated. Very, very. There are religious hotels like Lavi, Kinar, Nir Etzion, some religious hotels which are perfectly perfectly according to halacha. Otherwise, very, very complicated.
It's difficult.
Yeah.
We were actually in a hotel on Shabbat 16 years ago when my first son was born. We just went, Matthew said, let's go for one last holiday before the baby was born.
Yeah.
And I had to go to the hospital on Shabbat night, like 3 o'clock in the morning. So we went down to the reception and Matthew said to the woman, can you call us an Arab cab? We need to get to the hospital quickly. She said, I can call you a cab and I'm a Jew. So
what does it help?
So I actually read all about it, obviously.
Yeah.
So he had to drive me. He had to, and then he'd learned that when we got to the hospital, you had to just abandon the car.
The car, right? Leave it on and everything. Yeah.
But it was heck. I mean, and there was nothing. I mean, I had to get to the hospital. So.
Right.
But, I had to take my daughter to the hospital.
Oh yeah.
We were playing here. One pushed the other off the couch.
Hit the head.
And she smashed the head. My husband was like, get the ambulance. I'm like, I don't know how long it's going to take.
Yeah.
I'm going.
Yeah.
I literally put a towel around her, put change of clothes.
Bleeding badly?
It was everywhere. Her towel was saturated. She was wearing this cute onesie hoodie.
And she was screaming her head off.
Yes, thank God. That's the first time like I heard that. I was literally just coming down and I saw her fly, heard the bang, looked at her. Her mouth is wide open, but no sound coming out. And I'm like, please cry.
Please cry, right. That means no concussion.
She was in so much
hysterical.
But then luckily on the way to the hospital, she was just...
She calmed down?
Oh, Mama, I don't want to sit here. This is Dovi's seat. I'm going to get blood all over it. And because she was making sentences and like coherent, I was like, okay, this is a good sign. This is a good sign.
Right.
And I literally got to the hospital. I couldn't obviously park. I had to go all the way to the children's ward because I had never been there before in the car, so I had no idea how to get there. Mayor, the closest one.
Right.
I literally saw I couldn't obviously block where the entrance is because there's
ambulance.
So I parked the closest. I literally walked in. I mean, the whole paperwork, we waited there till after Shabbat. Luckily, it was like an afternoon. But it was...
Right, to drive back you couldn't.
Obviously couldn't drive back. Right. No phones, no anything. I think
the paperwork is something that you can't
key,
help the paperwork. That's the rules and regulations of a hospital. You can't.
And they also, I get there and
they ask your name, they ask this.
The name, everything, and then they're like, have you got a referral?
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, where do you think she's bleeding from her head? Even on the normal day, I won't call McCarvey to give me a referral. Of course I pay what I pay. Thank God.
Yeah, all fine. Good.
Wait.
First, I had to shower. I had to because they couldn't get to it. By the time she finally got seen, it was all massive.
Showering is the least problem. It's the least problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there a difference though? Let's say in a situation like that.
Yeah.
My instinct would be, I'll make a phone call before I get in the car because getting in the car is worse than making a phone call. Does it work?
To whom? To a driver?
Is it better? Let's say to call an ambulance. If you're breaking Shabbos, is it like you're all in? Once you break your Shabbos, it doesn't make a difference.
Oh, that's a very good
question.
No, that's a very important question.
Especially as coming from like a Baal Teshuva perspective, you feel, for example, what you do in your house is not as bad as what you do in public, because there are plenty of people that would call themselves religious, but what happens once the door closes, with regards to lights and the phone and television might be a bit different to how they never get in their
present
car.
outside.
They would never, or they would, let's say, put on careful makeup, but they would never carry it around with them. So does it actually work? Is there relative morality on Shabbat that you could make a call?
It's a very good question. So it depends like this. If it's a choleh she'ein bo sakana, if it's not in a dangerous situation, then we have certain rules, certain halachos that we can override, even for choleh she'ein bo sakana, not d'oraita, only rabbinic and two rabbinic, or goy plus rabbinic, all kinds of ways. So that we just do according to the rules. We have rules of what we're allowed to break on Shabbat and what not for choleh she'ein bo sakana. But your question applies to choleh sheyesh bo sakana. If it's a dangerous situation, the person is in danger, so then it depends. There are poskim who say it's pikuach nefesh hutra, Shabbat hutra, meaning it's completely like a weekday. We don't have to care about less malachos, more malachos, doing it b'shinui, not b'shinui, calling a goy, doing it ourselves, nothing, hutra. And those who say d'chuya, meaning that Shabbos is just pushed aside for the sake of human life, but the least you can push it aside, the better. And then it becomes relative. So the final psak halacha most probably is d'chuya, which means they are to minimalize our transgression of Shabbat. The minimum we have to transgress. So it definitely is worth calling a cab of a non-Jewish driver than driving your own car.
Even though you've already broken Shabbat by calling a cab.
Even so, because that's only a rabbinic. And B, you've broken it once. Now that you're going to drive a car, every single gas you pump in is a malacha d'oraita. It's a lot of malachas. Now, sometimes the situation is so urgent and desperate that you can't call a cab, which is just go. But if you can assess that the situation isn't so desperate, and you can call a cab, like a woman in labor. She knows that it's getting close, but she has the half an hour or so. She has the time to get there. So better if you call a non-Jewish cab driver to take you and your husband than driving your own car.
Right.
But if she's under pressure and desperate, so you just drive.
Yeah.
It all depends on the urgency, but we do care for every single malacha. We broke in Shabbat 5 times, don't do it 6 times.
Is there anything though, because I also, I know this is all like retrospective now, but I did give birth on a Friday night and we ended up driving because I didn't think we had enough time. But then like, after I'd given birth, I was in the room, but we'd left my bag in the car because we were in a rush to have the baby. And like me and my husband were having this discussion about like, can we use the key, because it's an electric key to open up the car. It's no longer an emergency now, but like I've got all my stuff that I need, like I've just had a baby and like, we had the whole of Shabbat ahead of us. And I would like...
understand. So the best in such a situation is definitely to use a goy.
Yeah.
Ask a goy to open the car for you. And here you can ask him directly. Why? The opening of the car electric is rabbinic. As we said many times, if it's not a filament wire, and there isn't one with the... what's that?
With the modern cars.
Modern cars, yeah. No filament wires to turn on. And the goy is a second durabanan. By asking a goy to do so for you, it's 2 durabanans now. And tzorach gadol, if it's a great need, you really feel you need it, it can make you much more comfortable. And after giving birth, you have to make yourself comfortable as much as possible. So, do it. It's impossible to find a goy. The other less good option, but it's another option, is to do it b'shinui, that your husband would somehow press the button b'shinui, not the normal way, and that opens the door.
You do it if you are able to do it. You need to.
No, that doesn't make a difference. As long as the intent is the person who needs it, doesn't matter who does the malacha. That doesn't make a difference. No. Doesn't matter, and especially since if you've just given birth, you're not going to go downstairs now to the car and get the stuff.
It's funny because they asked me to sign something in the process.
Oh yeah.
I said I can't sign it. It's Shabbat.
Right.
I have to sign.
This is a hospital here in Israel.
Yeah, in Hadassah. And they weren't a religious crew.
Yeah,
and
staff.
Should we turn off the lights because it's Shabbat?
Oh yeah. Fine
Nice
with
to
you?
me,
Yeah, right. You just see the process of the birth.
Compassion for
my wife had the same experience in Bellinson. Very unpleasant. Not the exact same situation, but I was saying to Hilim while she was in labor, and it wasn't the midwife, it was the doctor who was there also. He said something like, "What's that noise?" Daddy said, "What's that noise going on? It's bothering me." Now, yeah, they had the TV on, and that didn't bother him, but the Tehillim, what's that noise going on? Yes, my wife answered back. She said, "My husband's saying Tehillim, and it's helping me. I wanted to continue." So then he realized what he had done. So he says, "Okay, let's start over again." And then he was nicer. Yeah, but that's, they feel this type of.
Yeah.
And
if it was in England, I don't think it would have upset me at all.
No, at all. No, I don't think they would have said anything because they're much more respect more.
Right,
Not just respect religious people much more. Unfortunately, right.
It's all for a good cause. It's nice thinking about the drama and all of it. It's a nice. It's an important thing. It's an amazing thing. Like to have a baby on Shabbat or Chag is like.
Yeah.
I mean, any time, obviously, I hope the baby arrives in the world, but there's something like a bit unusual about the experience when it's all so like.
Yeah, the Gemara says that the baby is considered kadosh because it was born on a holy day. It's a holy baby, yeah.
I'll tell that to my other students. Always
to be jealous, right? Well, then we had 8 kids and no one was born on Shabbat. We had one. Now, one daughter was born on Shabbat at the very beginning, but we had arrived to the hospital like 2 or 3 hours before Shabbat. was already getting ready, and right after Shabbat, she came out. So yeah, she was born Shabbat, one daughter. Okay. Continuing these issues. Yeah, this is a nice case. What happens if you're walking leisurely on the street on Shabbat, on the sidewalk, taking a walk or going to shul, and suddenly someone stops the car next to you and asks, how do I get to this in this road, location,
or your
house?
son's classmate whose father doesn't know. Oh, you should. And you're like, oh gosh.
Hopefully not. Hopefully
no,
not.
I unfortunately had that.
You've had that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But this is where not speaking Hebrew really comes into its own.
Right, that's
saying,
great.
Sorry,
so I don't understand. Sorry.
My son was with me. His friend was in the car driving with his
You
dad.
can't do that, right? But also just asking for an address, every Israeli can broken English can explain to you what he's looking for. So it can't even work that way. So Shlomo Zalman came up with a very interesting solution. He felt that if you, first of all, no question, no one would argue with this, that you have to be nice to the person. You can't just say, get out of here, or Shabbat, I don't want to answer you, or ignore. Yeah, that's not being nice. And that's worse chilul Hashem than even helping that person continue driving to where he needs to get. That's number one, according to all posting, no question. The question is, how do we get out of it the best way? So Shlomo Zalman says, on contrary, it's dafka the correct way is to give him the instructions. Why? Because he's anyway going to drive. If he doesn't know where to go, he's going to drive much more than if you give him the instructions to get there exactly. On the other hand, how can you tell a person make a right, make a left, go straight, 2 meters there, 10 meters there? How can you say that on Shabbat? So Shlomo Zalman says you begin by saying, look, I will help you to get to where you need, but we don't drive on Shabbat. Something of that sort. You don't rebuke the person. You don't say you mustn't drive.
Well, I'm not asking you to come with me.
Right.
Because they'll understand.
They won't understand that your meaning is that one should be doing this.
It's too indirect.
It's too indirect.
Like, we think I'm inviting you to come with us.
Maybe that's the best. We'll just zoom
No, unfortunately,
they won't understand that. So
when we have my family, my husband's family, we hint things like that.
Yeah.
Like we say, like we don't take pictures on Shabbat. And
yeah, so
like,
they say, so we'll do it. We'll do it. Yeah.
I don't need you to.
Yeah, I've heard Chilonim.
Why are you telling me this?
I've heard Chilonim say to me myself. They say, I know you can't do this. I'll do it for you.
Right.
They think they're allowed. They think they're allowed. Yeah. Very unfortunate.
So the best thing to do is to give the directions, but to somehow intimate that it would be even better if they weren't
driving at all. Exactly. Somehow hint to them that it's not the right way.
But wouldn't be a bit condescending and a little bit like, who are you to tell me what to do?
Oh, that's why I said don't point the finger at them and say you shouldn't be driving, but I'll give you the instructions anyhow. That's too direct.
They won't get it.
They won't get it?
Unfortunately, from experiences.
Like we don't drive on Shabbat. We don't drive on Shabbat. Something we don't do. Something like that. Doesn't that make them think?
I think they will still they'll take it like
who's asking?
Or they'll take it offensive for you to tell me.
Oh yeah, even though it's just like, very indirect.
It like depends their relationship with the
T world.
The T world, exactly. They'll be like.
I think they should know better and not ask the T person for instructions. Yeah. That's in the first place. Why are you asking? I wouldn't say that to them. I think that's a little bit offensive on their part. To ask a religious person how to drive a car.
I think they don't think they do.
They don't know that it's something against the Torah?
No. My neighbors that they're stopping because you're walking, they wouldn't think there's anything wrong with it.
They don't I know, but they don't know that religious Jews don't drive on Shabbat.
But they're not asking you to drive.
I understand, but they don't understand to think that I should be helping them.
No.
Like for them, it's allowed, is it? For them, it's allowed.
For them, they'll think nothing is wrong. I'm stopping asking a question, and he's telling me how to live my life. I think, or they'll just won't get it.
So if you can't, you know what? I would even say like this: Shabbat Shalom, and I'll tell you how to go now. How's that? That's something very, very right, very delicate, very delicate. Shabbat Shalom. somehow make them understand that it's uncomfortable for you to give these instructions, but you're doing it anyhow.
So my neighbours, for example, on the Simcha that we live in, if they see the children I walk into shul, will slow down to wish Shabbat.
Okay, that you can't help.
I feel like it's
sure. No, definitely. That you're not doing anything to help them do Chilul Shabbos. They've done that anyhow. No, I wouldn't do the opposite. Let's say you see one of them. Oh, right. If you see one of them driving, you should be the first one saying Shabbat Shalom. If they're walking, then of course, yes, it's very nice to say to Chiluni people Shabbat Shalom. If they're walking and you're walking,
no, I'm talking about
but they're driving, right?
They slow down, especially.
Oh, so if they anyway slow down on their own, says nothing, you're not causing any Chilul Shabbos by replying back Shabbat Shalom. That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. On the contrary, I feel sometimes that when we walk to shul, the way we're dressed nicely and the way all the families together, that itself, I think, shows something beautiful about Judaism that Chilonim maybe envy us. It doesn't get them anywhere really, but something, and I think it touches something in their heart. So a nice greeting of Shabbat Shalom is important if it doesn't cause Chilul Shabbos.
What about now with little kids crossing zebra crossings, roundabouts, anywhere? Obviously, you want your kid, you yourself, you can see, oh, there's a car coming, I'll slow down before the zebra crossing so I don't have to make them stop.
The car stop.
But little kids aren't
right, they're impatient and
9-10 years old,
Right.
What would you suggest to
It's
them?
not the most terrible thing because you're right. It's better to try to avoid a situation where because of you, the person has to brake the car and then go and then drive again. It's more Chilul Shabbos that way. You're right. But on the other hand, you're entitled to go anywhere and to walk and to go. It's not really you're not causing them Chilul Shabbos. It's their fault that they're driving on Shabbat in some way. So if it happens, it happens. Many times I also try to avoid. And many times they're so nice that they see me from far and they start the car already. You can't help it. I don't try, after they've started the car, I don't try to avoid crossing the street.
You say thank you?
That I wouldn't. Because that they're not expecting from every single person who walks by to say thank you.
No,
for sure not.
We do have a lot of Anglos. Yeah, not that many that drive.
Right.
Still.
Right.
We have private school just at the back here. So
on weekdays, I nod like thank you. On weekdays, I nod to thank you for appreciate for what they stopping. On Shabbat, I wouldn't, because that gives them acknowledges the fact that they're driving and they're okay with it, and I thank them for stopping. It's too much of appreciation for they should not be doing in the first place, right? By the way, in the same token, this is something I'm not sure about, but I strongly feel that it could be okay. Crossing a red light on Shabbat for pedestrians when there's no car in the scene. No car whatsoever. On a weekday, I would never cross on a red light, no matter what, even if I don't see a car 2 kilometers away. Yeah. I would never.
With kids, I don't, but then again, I would cross in places I wouldn't let my kids cross.
I tell kids never,
never do it.
Never do
that's the worst way to educate. Sorry to say. So with kids, definitely don't. But even if I'm alone and there's no car around, it could be Chilul Hashem because some people are waiting for the green light, and you as a religious person walk by. That's Chilul Hashem. B, it's against the law. There's a law of the country that one mustn't cross on a red light. They even sometimes fine people, even pedestrians. No, they can fine you. It's an actual law.
I know, like in states, they're big on jaywalking.
Oh yeah.
And we had some. I think actually outside my high school, one of the girls did cross not on the street.
Oh yeah.
It was.
I mean, not on the zebra crosswalk.
There was no crossing. And it's also 2 lanes on each side with a little island in between.
Yeah.
So she couldn't be bothered to go either side because there's a bakery and stuff right opposite the school. So she just ran and apparently she got stopped by police. Jaywalking. I think
it doesn't happen much. It doesn't happen often, but you're not supposed to. So on weekdays, I prefer not. But on Shabbat, I feeling is they shouldn't be driving. There should not be any red light in the world on Shabbat for pedestrians. So there the feeling is that if I see dafka chiyoni people waiting, I'm not going to go dafka and cross anyhow. But if I don't see people around, they're only religious people, and no car, that dangerous is dangerous. You can't endanger yourself. But if there's nothing around, I would cross the street on Shabbat.
What about my son sometimes does it, and my daughter is picking that up. Before crossing the street on weekday, they'll put their hand up. So the guy will see they have intention to cross. And they're kind of,
safer
for them it's like, thank you, and stop at the same gesture.
Isn't it?
It's crazy. I'm like, what are you doing? You're stopping the car. I know he has to stop because it's a crossing.
Right.
But it's so like in your face.
I think they're teaching in school, you have to make sure the person knows you're crossing.
But here, they literally...
It's a safety measure. Like, it's very important. Yeah.
Can they do that on Shabbat or have to stop?
No, for sure. No, definitely not.
They have
That's
to wait
mamish
for
causing
them to stop themselves.
Best is to avoid from them stopping for you, but if they don't do that, at least wait and stop on their own. Right. That's mamish causing them to do malacha.
Well, you standing there should be the same.
But that's not so direct. They don't have to stop for you. When you do like this,
it's a law.
I know, but some people don't listen to that law. So it's not 100% that they would stop for you.
They also don't have to stop.
They don't have to, but it's even closer to
you're kind of
almost forcing them. Right. So the least forcing is pushing better. Now, if all this is uncomfortable for you to say Shabbat Shalom or we don't drive on Shabbat, but I'll help you anyhow, all these ideas aren't comfortable. And it's very uncomfortable just to give them directions. Drive here, drive there. Doesn't sound good. So you can say, I don't know. Even if you do know, you're allowed for the purpose of not leading a person to sin. You're allowed to lie. And why? No, it's really a lie because you do know. You're allowed to lie in order to prevent yourself from helping someone transgress a law, halacha. But again, it has to be that the person doesn't realize that you're lying, because again, if they feel that you're lying, then Chilul Hashem. Again, if they're very, very aware of Chilul Hashem, that's the number one deciding point of how to answer this question. After that, we go through the other routes. Okay, one more situation of this type. This is very, very unfortunate, and it's really, really bothersome in the keeping of halachos. What happens if you have a bris milah, which is an event that we should not be postponing? Bris milah is on the 8th day. It's very, very important. Otherwise, it's chiyuv karet. Very, very serious to postpone a bris, unless there are medical reasons, of course. But in this situation, let's say bris milah falls on Shabbat. You had a baby on Shabbat, so the bris is the next following Shabbat. You know that if you hold the bris as normal on Shabbat, you'll have chiloni guests who will drive over, or family. The family will drive to the bris. And even if you tell them, I prefer you don't, and I have a spot for you, all that, but they'll do it anyhow. So it's a very, very complicated situation, because on one hand, we don't want to postpone a bris. On the other hand, we don't want people to mechal Shabbos for a bris. It's not worth it. Chilul Shabbos is skila. And postponing a bris, after all, is you don't get punished unless a person delays and never does a bris.
But isn't that the same law that just inviting anybody for Shabbat?
Yeah, so correct. Anybody for Shabbat.
You still know that your family or friends are going to
drive. And they drive, right.
So you offer them
back
a place
or over.
To stay, or...
Right, so we spoke about that. That was one of the questions we had spoken about earlier.
Different? Different ruling.
In a way, it's different because that's totally abnormal. When you have an event, to say to people, sleep over or
right, it's
give
not
you
as
an
intimate, it's not as a family gathering.
As a family gathering, they're coming to your house, right. So you're going to have everyone sleep. It's not real. It's much less real. The offer is not real. Right. Almost like make-believe type. Yeah. When it's mizuyaf, like...
sincere.
It's not sincere. It isn't sincere, right.
You don't have 20 beds.
Right. It's a false, right.
Would it be the same for like a Shabbat for mitzvah that you're inviting people you know will be breaking Shabbat?
That's definitely. That's even worse than a bris because you don't have to have it. You don't have to have it on occasions. It's of course customary and it's great for the kid.
Yeah.
It's
Really?
even more
To,
problematic.
like, lane on Shabbat?
No.
Right. We call it to the Torah.
And lane in the other day.
You don't have to lay.
Yeah, you don't have to lay.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Well, I mean,
Here's
it's still
the
got 2.5 years to learn.
Yeah. No, it's customary that they lay in the entire parsha. Of course, it's customary in the entire parsha, but they don't have to. In the Haredi world, on purpose, they don't lay in the parsha. You just get maftir and haftarah. You just do 3 psukim in the end. They have different reasons why they do it that way, but Haredi world, dafka they who learn so much Torah, or mitzvah boys do not lay in the parsha. I've seen many Haredi. What's that?
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Good to not shame the boys that can't do it.
That's exactly. That's one of the reasons. And I also heard 2 other reasons. They feel that for the kid to study, if you had a bar mitzvah, it takes them like a half a year or 3 months to really work on it day in, day out. They feel full year. Wow. Yeah, can they get the right words, to say the words properly. So the Haredi feel it's bittul Torah. Instead of them learning another Mishnah or another pasuk in Tanakh, really learn it. It says memorize for tons and tons of times till you get the whole parsha. They consider it Torah.
Consider what to do with it.
Yeah, you'll see. Sometimes it's too much, so they do less.
It's a lot.
Yeah,
it's not wasted because you'll remember this forever. But
not so sure either. Only if he continues to lay the parsha from year to year, or at least once in 2-3 years. Otherwise, he'll forget it. Even that he'll forget. The other reason is because they say, why should the entire shul be captive of a young boy who lays barely and so slowly and all that? They feel it's not nice for the Tichanit Tzibura. It's lovely, but for the family. Why should the whole community have to?
Not all boys are melodic and
right, and they make mistakes, and they're slow, and they're not accurate with their trump and everything else. So it's cute and nice for the family. It's great. If you make a family event, then it's fine. The whole family is all happy, pleased, and proud. But if it's the
whole family, not going to care.
Right.
And it's like, oh, he went to be my lovely. Come back down now. Let's take some pictures on Shabbat.
Yeah.
But I think
they don't get it. What work went into it.
Their perspective, though, like I would say, from my perspective, that like a modern Orthodox child, the argument of Bissell Torah doesn't really hold.
Correct, because they're not going to be learning instead of
my son. If they weren't learning that, they would not be necessarily learning something more worthwhile. So for them, it was. I don't feel bad that I made them do that for it. I mean, they studied for a year.
No, but if you do preparing a year before, and instead you do them after, they learn. I mean, they know how to. They read it, right? They don't have to. It's easier. You said that the Haredi community.
Right, they do them after. Yes, it's 3 psukim. It takes them 3 weeks or a month. And that's it. It's
right. So that, but then instead of doing the whole laning, the year of preparation for bar mitzvah, you get.
You do a lot of
you do learning.
Other learning, sure.
Other learning.
That's great. That's
just
great. There are community rabbis who have that type of program for bar mitzvah boys. They have a program for bar mitzvah boys where they teach them morals and hashkafa and halacha and all kinds of things. Yeah, that's great. That's good.
How do ballet chorale like?
That's true. How they develop?
How do you know?
Because when you grow, that's a good point. I guess I also asked myself that question. I think what the feeling of the parents or whatever is they get it very right. They get it very, very well. Even that maftir, you can tell by a maftir how the kid is, as tuning is.
Boys and girls aspire to sing, especially when they come to shul. But to be honest, they don't really sing in legit like Orthodox communities. It's more
less.
It's
no, the Hasidim sing a lot. The Litvaks.
Not laning.
No, laning is a regular trop. Everyone reads a regular trop. Everyone does the same. But all the singing in the davening all together, and during davening, to sing all kinds of pieces of the davening, that's the Hasidic world does a lot of singing, and the Tvak much less. Okay, so just to finish off with this bris milah situation. So if you could organize a very small religious bris milah on Shabbat, and then the Suda, the meal, the feast, have on Sunday, and then invite the extended large family and friends, that's the best. So then there's no Chilul Shabbos involved. You did the bris on time. The Suda, the feast, a nice big feast. It's anyway easier to cope with big Suda, not on Shabbat, because on Shabbat you need to feed many people for 3 meals. It's a whole big, you have to do this way. You have a small group of religious people who stay by you. At the actual bris, and Sunday you do the Suda. If that doesn't work, it's uncomfortable for you to do the whole Suda when there's no bris, really, because on Sunday it's no longer a Sudat mitzvah. It's just for the fun of it. So if it's uncomfortable to do that way, and you cannot explain to your non-religious family or friends that please either really stay nearby or you don't come to the bris. They won't accept it. They'll be offended. They'll come anyhow, or things of that sort. So the post can say, including Rabbi Yosef, another post can, they say, postpone the bris by a day, and do it on Sunday, even if there's no medical issue. Yeah. It's worse to cause people to Chilul Shabbos than the bris to be on time. Okay, so we'll stop at this. A few more situations like this. These are very, very practical, relevant cases in our life that come up, and know what to do properly. Okay, have a good evening. Bye-bye, and Shabbat Shalom.
Thanks. Bye. Shabbat Shalom.
Okay.